The wind rolled low across the wide Wyoming prairie, carrying with it the smell of rain and the soft whisper of something, shifting, something neither seen nor spoken but felt, like a tremor deep in the bones. Rancher Luke Marston had felt it since dawn, a quiet tug beneath his ribs, reminding him that the world often delivered trouble long before a man could name it. He was riding the fence line near Miller's Bluff, his horse's hooves thudding softly in the dirt, when he spotted movement by the old wagon trail. A flash of faded blue cloth, the glint of metal, and then the small, slight form of a girl waving both arms desperately. Luke slowed his horse, squinting as the wind tossed dust between them. She couldn't have been more than 12, maybe 13, pale-faced, eyes too wide with the kind of fear that belonged to someone much older. And beside her, leaning against a broken rucksack, was a younger boy, frail, coughing into a thin blanket that did little to shield him from the cold bite of early spring. Luke's jaw tightened as he rode closer. Sir, please, the girl called out, her voice trembling between determination and panic. Can you take us to town? Luke observed them quietly before dismounting. His boots hit the ground with a weighted thud. He had seen orphans before. This land was harsh, and fate was cruel. But something in the girl's stance, the way she shielded her brother with her body despite her obvious exhaustion, stirred a long-dormant ache inside him. Where are your folks? He asked, though he already suspected the answer. The girl swallowed, her eyes flicking toward the distant ridge as if replaying something haunting. Gone, she whispered. They didn't make it through the night. Luke exhaled slowly, the truth settling like a stone in his chest. The boy coughed again, harder this time, and the girl gripped his shoulders to steady him. We just need to get to town, she said. The doctor there. Maybe he can help my brother, please. We've been walking since yesterday. Luke scanned the horizon, the storm clouds gathering, the hint of lightning threading the sky, and he knew immediately that walking was no longer an option for them. But he also knew something else. Trouble tended to follow the desperate. Not because they deserved it, but because the world preyed on the vulnerable. He could already see wagon tracks nearby, fresh ones bending east instead of west. Too sharp, too deliberate, as if someone had left in a hurry. Bandits? Homesteaders fleeing debts? Or something darker? Luke didn't know, but whatever it was, these kids didn't belong in the middle of it. Town's a far ride, he finally said, adjusting his hat as the girl stared up at him with a flicker of hope. Storm's coming in fast. We won't beat it unless we move. The girl nodded quickly. We can ride, sir. We won't slow you down. I promise. Luke sighed, rubbing his thumb over the leather reins. He wasn't a man who invited people into his life. Hadn't been since he'd buried his wife 3 winters ago, but the raw desperation in the girl's voice hit him square in the chest. I'll take you, he said, and saw the relief flood her face before he added quietly, only if you promise to come back home after. My ranch ain't much, but it's safer than whatever you're running from. The girl blinked, confused. Come back? Luke nodded once. Storm like this'll shut the road for days. You'll need a warm roof and meals until your brother heals. I'm not letting you wander off alone into something you ain't ready to face. The girl hesitated, looking at her brother, then back at Luke. You don't even know us. Luke gave a single dry laugh. I know enough. Besides, no child should be left without a place to land. Not out here. She studied him, searching his eyes for any hint of danger, but all she found was the tired steadiness of a man who'd carried too much heartache to ever add more by choice. She nodded, slow but certain. All right, she whispered. We'll come back. Luke helped them onto his horse, positioning the boy in front and the girl behind, her arms wrapped protectively around her brother. He mounted behind them, steadying the reins as thunder rumbled across the sky. As they headed toward town, the wind rose, carrying not just the coming storm, but the feeling of something about to unravel, something big enough to change all 3 of their lives forever. And though none of them yet understood the danger trailing them, Luke Marston's instincts told him their story was only beginning. That storm behind them was not the only one they'd have to outrun, and the promise the girl made to return home would soon become the lifeline they all depended. The storm broke over them like a beast unleashed, turning the world into sheets of silver rain and howling wind as Luke pushed the horse harder toward Ashton Town, the thunder rolling overhead in violent bursts. The girl, whose name he learned was Clara, clung tightly to her brother Eli, shielding him from the lashing rain as Luke's coat flapped wildly behind them. By the time they reached the outskirts of town, Eli's small frame trembled with fever, and Clara's lips were nearly blue from cold. Luke dismounted quickly, lifting Eli into his arms before Clara even had time to slide off the saddle. "Dr. Grayson's place is 2 blocks down," he told her urgently, and she stumbled beside him as they raced through, the rain toward the only lit window on the street. The doctor opened the door with a scowl until he noticed Eli's condition. Within seconds, he ushered them inside, barking orders as he checked the boy's pulse and breathing. Clara hovered over her brother, her shoulders shaking not from cold but from the fear she'd been holding. And since the morning they fled, Luke stood near the doorway, dripping onto the wooden floor, watching them with the quiet patience of a man who understood grief all too well. When Grayson finally spoke, his tone was grave. "The boy has a bad lung infection. Another night in the cold and he wouldn't have made it." Clara's eyes filled with tears as she sank into a chair, covering her face with her hands. Luke placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. "He's safe now," he said softly. But Clara shook her head, wiping her face as she looked up at him. "You don't understand. They're coming." Luke froze. "Who?" Clara swallowed hard. "The men who burned our cabin. They wanted our land. Pa wouldn't sell, so they killed him. Ma told us to run before they came back." Luke's jaw clenched. Land thieves. Hired enforcers. He had seen enough of their cruelty in the past to know this wasn't a fight, children. Should be anywhere near. "You're safe here," he told her firmly, but Clara shook her head again. "No, they followed us. I saw tracks earlier on the trail. Fresh ones." Luke's eyes narrowed as he replayed the wagon marks he'd noticed near the ridge. Storm or no storm, someone had been close behind them. And if they were still coming, Ashton Town wasn't prepared. It was small, with only a handful of deputies and no real defenses. Clara grabbed his sleeve, her voice cracking. "You shouldn't have helped us. They'll come for anyone who stands in their way." Luke knelt in front of her, gripping her trembling hands. "Listen to me, Clara. You and your brother needed help. And I'm not the kind of man who lets fear decide what's right." Her eyes glistened, the weight of survival pressing down on her chest. "But why?" she whispered. "Why would you risk yourself for us?" Luke stared at the floor for a long moment before answering. "Because someone once helped me when I had nobody left. And I've spent years wishing I could repay that kindness. Maybe this is how." Before Clara could respond, the sound of horse hooves thundered outside, several of them. The doctor glanced toward the window. "Who in their right mind rides in this storm?" Luke stood sharply, hand near the holster instinctively. "The kind of men we don't want in this town." The hooves stopped. Voices echoed. Boots hit mud. The door rattled under a heavy knock. "Open up," a rough voice shouted. "We're looking for 2 kids. A girl and a sick boy. They belong to us." Clara stiffened, her fingers digging into Luke's sleeve. Luke motioned silently for her to hide behind the medical cabinet, and she obeyed, crouching low. The doctor stood frozen, fear draining the color from his face. Luke stepped toward the door, bracing himself as he opened it just wide enough to face the men outside. 3 of them, armed, mean-eyed, soaked from the rain. "Evening," Luke said calmly. "This is a medical office, not a runaway posting board." The leader sneered. "We tracked them here. Little rats got lucky in the storm, but luck don't last." Luke's eyes hardened. "Nobody here matches who you're looking for." The man leaned closer. "You sure about that, rancher?" The way he said rancher wasn't an accident. Luke recognized him now. Clay Henley, a hired gun. With a reputation for leaving bodies behind him, Luke stood his ground. "I don't take kindly to threats," he said simply. Henley smirked. "Not a threat. A promise. If we find you're lying, you'll regret it." The men mounted again, riding off toward the saloon to question the locals. When the door closed, Clara emerged, shaking uncontrollably. "They won't stop," she whispered. "They'll search the whole town." Luke nodded grimly. Then we can't stay here. But Eli, I'll talk to the doctor. If Eli can travel, we leave now. If he can't, then I'll make sure those men never step foot in this office. Again, storm or no storm, Luke knew what had to be done. He had kept his word. He brought the children to town. Now he had to keep their new promise, the one Clara didn't fully understand yet, the one he'd given before knowing the danger. If she promised to come back home, he'd give her one, a safe one, a real one, not just a roof, but protection, family, belonging. Clara gripped his hand suddenly, her voice small but fierce. "We'll go with you," she said. "When Eli wakes up, when he can walk, we'll come back to the ranch like you said. You were right. We need a home." Luke looked at her, this thin, brave kid who had seen more death in a week than most adults did in a lifetime, and something inside him shifted, firm and unshakable. "I'll keep you safe," he promised. "Both of you. No matter what." Outside, lightning cracked the sky, illuminating the silhouettes of Henley's men as they searched the streets. War was coming, and Luke Marston would meet it head-on, because now he had something worth fighting for again. And as the storm roared around them, Clara whispered to Eli, asleep on the cot, "We finally found someone who won't run.